All right, so here we are in the Intro to Mindfulness and Coping class for parents. My name is Christine Desposito, and I am a birth and postpartum doula. I'm in Duluth, Minnesota,
Oh,
and I am a doula trainer, and I also work with parents leading birth classes, doing postpartum work, and for many years attending births, although now I'm mostly focused on training other doulas and other birth workers. So, Birthing from Within, just several months ago, launched a parent membership and a parent space with different offerings for parents in different stages of their journey. And this is part of one of our new offerings. This is the Intro to Mindfulness and Coping. It is followed next month by a series on the same topic, and I will share more about that before we go today for anybody that's interested. So, this is again just an intro. We only have an hour today, and my goal is to introduce different kinds of coping practices that often serve parents. And I always like to remind us that, of course, this is in relationship to birth, but it's also really relevant for people in the fertility journey, in the postpartum, in the parenting journey, that like mindfulness and coping is something that we need in life. It's not just connected to parenting or birth, but certainly for folks that may be watching this or here that are pregnant, we're going to give some good tips for specific to that as well. Again, my name's Christine Desposito. I've been a doula for about 23 years and have worked with really thousands of parents. And this topic that we're presenting really comes with from my training with Birthing from Within, which I've been most of that, about 20 years with the organization Birthing from Within, and from the founder of Birthing from Within, Pam England. I use she, her pronouns, again, Duluth, Minnesota. I am not in a parenting stage, but I would love to hear from you if you want to share anything about yourself. And then when you think with just generally in life, or maybe if you're already a parent or have been pregnant before, what is one way that you normally cope with intensity? And that can be physical, emotional, mental, all of it.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm Jenna and I use she, her. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm also in my third trimester. And I had a very long labor with her. It was at a birth center, so it was low intervention and a lot of what I wanted, but some of it I am hoping to figure out how to make it a little easier this time for my body to kind of allow the process to happen a little more easily. Um, and I think being outside, like, and looking around and taking a deep breath is like really helpful in general. And like during that labor was really helpful. I was able to walk outside and go to the little like brook that was nearby with my husband. And I feel like that was one thing that helped me kind of like move forward from feeling the intensity of it all.
Yeah, and thank you for offering just, yeah, the ability to like step outside. And there's so many things out there to distract us, engage our senses, remind us to take a deep breath. I'd say that's my go-to as well, just being able to get outside. And I've worked with lots of infants before, and I notice when they are having a really hard time or crying and I'm trying to do all the normal soothing things. Stepping outside is often really helpful for them as well to just kind of shift out of
Hmm.
whatever's going on for them. Yeah. So just an opportunity to create a little container here in our space today. You know, it's just us here in person, but I always just offer a remindment of, I like to think of this as a come as you are space that however you need to show up today is fine. Big feelings, engagement, no engagement, video, no video, whatever works for you. This is a confidential space, just stories and opinions here to remain confidential and also just be respectful. So I don't think we'll have any problems in this small of a group, especially, but I always just like to, the slides there, so I always just like
Yeah,
to offer
sure.
that. So I like to start with just a little bit of a conversation around the difference and the similarities between coping and comfort,
Mm.
because a lot of times we may not stop to think about like, oh, those are actually two different things, and there are some similarities. And so generally when we think about coping, the goal is to work through or manage pain, intensity, stress, challenge. We're trying to get through it. We're enacting some sort of mechanism, a coping mechanism, if you will, to get through whatever we're experiencing, the intensity that we're experiencing. And in this situation, you know, it's not always the goal to completely eliminate discomfort. That I like to talk to parents about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. That even in situations where somebody is using pain medication or, you know, has a variety of other coping skills, that they may still experience discomfort. But the difference is they're getting through it. They're able to perhaps stay present, access their inner resources, strength, and resilience. And so, some examples of what this looks like in general, but especially in labor, might be rhythmic breathing, using vocalization and sound like moaning, perhaps focusing on saying a phrase over and over again, like a mantra, using a sentence or a word that they are just repeating. That is, you know, often part of a distraction. Also, it engages vocalization, which has a whole other connection to the sense of softening and releasing the pelvic floor muscles. Visualization, some people may bring images that they are using specifically to kind of use as a focal point, or maybe with their eyes closed. There's visualizations that organically emerge, I find, for people in labor, even when this isn't a tool they normally use, that sometimes it just happens. And also sometimes people may be listening to tracks like hypnobirthing or other types of visualization intended for labor and birth, that they're listening on, you know, headphones or on a speaker. Squeezing their partner's hand, and just movement, rhythmic movement,
Mhm.
often swaying, pacing, rocking, tapping. All of these things are often things that people don't necessarily plan ahead of time in labor, but their body just does them and their brains just make it up in the moment. Their body is just reacting. And a lot of these things are ways that we regulate our nervous system, that we co-regulate with other people as well. So that's coping. And then when we think about comfort, this is more finding ease, finding a sense of relief, or even the absence of discomfort, right? And again, I do really like to frame to parents like getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, that it's pretty unrealistic to think that even when you have every support that you've imagined or heard about being useful, that there's likely going to be some discomfort. And so for people in labor, this is often like moving in and out of places of comfort, of more or less
Mhm.
comfort. So it's not like, okay, you know, we're going to be comfortable the entire time, but
Yeah.
there are ways to increase comfort and moments of finding comfort, relief, ease. So the goal here is to reduce or minimize pain, tension, anxiety, helping somebody to feel soothed, relaxed, cared for. And so even thinking about like that last one of feeling cared for, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's not feeling discomfort, but within that, they're feeling supported, they're feeling care. And that can really change somebody's experience, right? Even if it doesn't change the outcome of what they're feeling, it can change their internal experience. So, some examples of this might be massage or other kinds of touch, getting into warm water like a shower or a bath, a soft blanket, sometimes just a texture that is familiar and soothing to you, can be so comforting. Calming music, dim lighting, encouraging words. And these are all things that, when I think about comfort measures in labor, that, I share with parents. And of course, parents that have birthed before may have found some of these things to also be helpful. I'm curious for you, Jenna, were there elements of these kinds of either coping mechanisms or techniques or comfort measures that you found were really helpful?
Yeah, I think it's interesting seeing it broken down kind of like that. It makes sense. I think coping like that is kind of like where I'm focused on preparing this time around because I didn't I had things that were helpful in the comfort realm, but like it was very like in and out and like not it wasn't a static place that I finally landed. It was just kind of like moments. So um I loved the birthing tub, but my I was not able to stay in there because my contractions slowed down. But like getting in the shower was really helpful. Um, and having like calming music. And I thought I would love massage. I didn't love massage during that one, that
Hmm.
labor. But like coping wise, I did have a mantra that I like tapped through my fingers, like I had practiced before. That really helped. And then my partner like supporting me in different positions and squeezing his hand.
Yeah.
And movement, and then also sound making, definitely. Yeah, and yeah, I made the VU sound was like really helpful to me.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think both.
Yeah, so many of these things, it sounds like were helpful for you. You named lots of
Yeah,
them. And isn't it interesting how, it's common that things that we think might be really comforting or helpful, that we actually don't necessarily want that in labor, right? Like things you might normally enjoy, like massage or touch, sometimes people are like, okay, this is going to be the thing. And then you get into the experience and it's
yeah,
like, nope, that's not the thing. That was
yeah,
surprising. I thought that was really going to be something that would be helpful. So
yeah,
even when, people prepare and have conversations and do more than have conversations, actually practice some of these things ahead of time, I always say, just know that we need to just be flexible in the moment, and
yeah,
you'll know more when you get there what's going to work and what's not going to work.
yeah. Makes sense.
So, what do we mean when we say mindfulness? A lot of times, people think about meditation, and they may connect the mindfulness practice or the word mindfulness with meditation. And certainly, meditation engages mindfulness, but mindfulness isn't necessarily meditation, right? And just kind of overall, when we're talking about mindfulness, this is the action of just bringing our attention to the present moment with intention, with purpose, and with curiosity, right? Without judgment, which means that the goal isn't to do it perfectly. The goal isn't to erase all of the thoughts or keep our mind from wandering or jumping around thinking about our to-do list or what we're going to do later, right? It's going to be really normal when we are practicing mindfulness, especially in the beginning, because it is a practice and it's something that as we practice, it gets more um, like a reflex, like the way that we just naturally move towards bringing curiosity in, bringing purpose or intention, and letting go of the critical mind, the judgment that says, like, oh, you're not doing it right. Now you're thinking about this and you should be doing this, right? And instead, in mindfulness, it's more like, yep, there's my mind, there's my thoughts, there's the list, there's this. And now I'm just going to bring my attention back to my next breath, right? And breath is really always there for us. So it's a great guiding force to just remind us that, like, every next breath is a new opportunity to just jump back in, right? So instead of dwelling on, oh gosh, I'm doing it wrong, and now I've thought about this, and now I've really messed it up, and what's the point because I've already messed it up? It's like, nope, here's the next breath. We're just going to bring our attention back there, right? And in a sense, the breath is a really helpful guide to help to calm the mind or steady the mind. But the mind's nature is that it's kind of like, trying to like walk a puppy on a leash for a first time. It's like darting here and there, and it's not yet trained, right? And there's a certain way of, with practice over time, that it becomes, like I said, more like a reflex. I like to think about like we're exercising a new muscle in our minds, a way of responding. And as we practice mindfulness, and mindfulness can be used in many different ways. It doesn't have to be just in stillness. We can take walks. We can be using it in journaling. Pam England often talks about like making tea with mindfulness, like turn the kettle on and just allow ourselves to sit there and wait for the water to boil and use that as an opportunity just to bring our attention to our breath, our thoughts, our emotions, our senses, right? What are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are we touching? What's touching us, etc. And to just cycle through, right? We can use it as an opportunity just to simply notice, again, with curiosity, trying to move away from judgment. And of course, it's human to have the judgment, right? We're not going to eradicate that completely, but it's more of a process of just noticing, right? And how is this helpful for labor, right? A lot of labor happens in our minds, right? It's so much a mental process. So sometimes what's happening in our brains is helpful, and sometimes it's not helpful. Sometimes, in fact, in labor, it can create us to kind of spiral down into a place where we're not coping, right? And so when we can begin to bring mindfulness, not just in labor, but practicing ahead of time, we can begin to strengthen that mental muscle, which helps us to use this as a response in times of intensity throughout our lives, including labor, but starting now, wherever you are. And for folks that might be already postpartum listening, great. Doesn't mean it's too late. Starting now, right? Mindfulness is a tool for our lives. Any questions so far? Okay. Feel free to, if you do, just jump in as well.
Okay.
So, mindfulness can be used to help us stay grounded during intense sensations or emotions. It can help us to notice what we need in the moment, to, access our inner resources and be able to take an action if needed, to connect with the body and your baby, and to help to work with the experience, whatever's happening, rather than fight against it, right? Sometimes when there's intensity, one of the first things that we do is to tense up and hold our breaths. And that is counter reactive to what we actually need to do, right? Which is to help bring our breath into the tight spaces and create a little bit more space there. Our outward breath is also connected to our autonomic nervous system, bringing oxygen to all the cells of our body, tapping into a sense of safety, and helping our bodies to release, relax, let down. So there's been a lot of research on mindfulness and labor, and we're not going to get into like the stats and the numbers in this class, but just knowing like lots of really readily accessible research out there on reduced pain perception, right? And one of the ways that works is what's called the gate control theory. And what that means is there are only so many senses or sensations that our brains can track, right? So if we imagine that we're experiencing physical pain or intensity in some way that is uncomfortable, that is intense, and then we add to it, let's say something that smells good or touch that we like, or the sound of music that is distracting us and pleasant. That is going to help it change the perception of the negative sensation, right? It's not making the sensation go away. That sensation is still there. But now we have all these other sensations that we enjoy, and we're paying attention to the one that we don't enjoy less, right? So it's just changing the perception. So the way we might use mindfulness is like, yes, okay, this contraction is intense, but I'm also noticing the feeling of my partner's warm hand on my body, or the sound of the music, or the smell of the lavender oil. And now I'm, just kind of using my attention to look at the whole picture instead of just paying attention to this one contraction. It is shown to help lower our anxiety and our fear, improved coping and emotional well-being, and to connected to decreased use of medical interventions. And so lots of benefits of bringing mindfulness practice in, especially in the connection to preparing for labor, but in general, like lower anxiety and fear, great. Yes, please. Like I will take that. So, what does coping in labor look like? And is a calm birth the goal, right? Many people that I work with, many parents that I work with, they often share with me that their goal is to have a calm birth. And um, I never negate that. Like, yes, that sounds wonderful. And I always like to expand on the image that people may have of what does coping look like in labor. Because the truth is that coping in labor is sometimes really loud and noisy and big, and the movements may be big or even erratic, right? And often this doesn't fit into the image that we have of what coping looks like. Often when we think of coping, it's like, okay, calm breathing and, maybe sitting more still and rhythmic breathing and not certainly, making loud sounds or even like screaming or yelling, right? But for somebody in labor that is doing all of those things, we may check in with them about how they're doing, and they may share, like, this is working for me, this is me coping, right? And similarly, the person that looks really calm and collected on the outside may actually be suffering inside, right? We can't just assume based on what they look like or sound like that they are coping and that they're not suffering. And so, while, I like to always support the goals of the parents that I'm working with, if their goal is a calm birth, great, let's, practice a variety of things that may help with that outcome, but then also really seeding the message that, like, if your birth doesn't look like the calm way that you maybe envisioned it, that doesn't mean you failed, right? That doesn't mean you did it wrong, that sometimes coping in labor just looks different. And so really just kind of holding that message of like, what does coping in labor look like? It can look all these different ways, right? It can look like somebody's face looks relaxed and they look peaceful. It can look like, they are scrunched up and maybe, you know, even yelling or making loud sounds, right? It can look like being using the use of medical interventions, if that's what somebody wants or needs, right? So all of these examples are images of people coping in different ways. So, how do we practice mindfulness? What are things that we can do in the moment to actually engage with this instead of just thinking about it and talking about it? And one thing that's true is that um, embodied learning is going to be generally what sticks, especially when we think about in labor, when the brain's in an altered state, not taking in information in the same way as in our normal conditions, our normal lives. Actually practicing is going to be so much more effective than just talking about it or reading it, right? So those are the pieces that I really recommend, and that's exactly what our 4-week course is about that follows this, is we're going to actually get into the practice of doing these things in each week. We're going to engage with different practices that I'll lead and give you an opportunity to learn, and then you can continue beyond the class in your own life. And I'm hoping that we can just get into the tip of the iceberg with a tiny little practice today as well. So, mindful breathing, mindful breath, right? That is just the act of simply noticing your breathing, noticing your breath, feeling your belly rise and fall, feeling the in breath and the out breath, and noticing, right? Again, trying to dial down the critic, the part that might say, like, oh, you're not breathing well, or you're breathing too shallow, or you're doing it like this, or not doing it like this, right? It's like, yep, there's that thought. And then here's our next breath. And we're just going to keep going. Mindful listening, right? This is something that I really try to engage when I'm, listening to somebody share something that's going on with them. And sometimes, a lot of times, what happens when we're listening is we're just kind of analyzing what somebody's saying. And often we're just thinking about, like, okay, what am I going to say back? What's my response? Preparing what our response is, right? And when we're doing that, we're not really actually listening to what they're saying. So, this is just a practice that we can engage any day with our children, with our partners, with, a stranger on the street. Doing a body scan, this is the act of just noticing, maybe starting with our brow and our jaw, helping it to get soft and loose, bringing our attention to our fingers, our toes, the muscles in our arms, our abdomen, pelvic floor, thighs, all the way down to our toes, right? Just scanning the body and intentionally just softening, loosening, noticing. Noticing the present moment, right? The present moment can include so many things. It could include your children screaming in the background. It could include music. It could include traffic outside or the sound of, equipment banging, right? Just because things aren't peaceful doesn't mean we can't engage in mindfulness. And this is such a good reminder, too, for labor. If there's beeping of machines, if there's people talking that you're like, oh, I wish that they would stop. And if they would, then I could cope. It's like, let's create an opportunity to bring those sounds into the soundscape of what coping looks like in this moment, right? Mindfulness in motion, right? We may use this in yoga or other movement practices where we are moving our bodies, but also in mindfulness. We might just take a walk in mindfulness, right? Feeling our feet on the floor and noticing our breath and noticing the wind touching our skin or noticing the sunshine and the way that it feels on our body. And then journaling or reflection, right? Sometimes people use journaling as an opportunity to go deeper within their own thoughts or feelings, and just being present with that is a kind of mindfulness. And so again, in the 4-week class, we will go through all of these different things in different ways and give an opportunity to actually practice it, and then also give ideas for how to continue practicing beyond this class. So, what I'd love to do is to just create an opportunity here today to do a little practice. This is a practice where, as you see in the image, we use a couple of ice cubes to hold on to, and the purpose of that is to engage with sensation. For some people, the sensation is very unpleasant, and for others, it's like neutral, or some people may even like it. But the goal of it is just to create a sensation, whatever the experience is, because if we practice mindful breathing, um, without a sensation, in some situations, it is just like very relaxing, and that can be great. But in the context of preparing for labor, where somebody knows that they're going to be, practicing coping with intensity, the ice works really well to just not mimic labor, of course, or mimic a contraction, but just to, again, like give you an edge to bump up against so that it wakes you up a little bit and you're like, okay, let's, see what I've got, see what I can do here with this sensation. So this is an invitation. It's not required. If you would like to practice in this way with me today, you can pause and go get a bowl with a few ice cubes and maybe like a cloth or a paper towel to catch any drips. Is that something that you feel willing to do?
Yeah, I've done this one before, but I'm curious to try it now.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Great. Yeah, take a moment, gather whatever you need. Those of
Okay.
you listening at home today, same thing. Take a minute, gather a few ice cubes in a bowl, and a cloth or paper towel. Okay. All right, great. So before even picking up the ice, this practice is called breath awareness, and it is simply just bringing your awareness to your breath. Generally, we are noticing our outward breath, but of course, just noticing your breath in general. Outward breath, again, as I was sharing, it is the breath of release, softening, and connected to our autonomic nervous system, which sends the message to our body that we are safe. One of the other pieces of this practice is noticing the internal dialogue, noticing the thoughts that are coming up, noticing what you're telling yourself about the practice, about the sensation, about how you're coping. All of those pieces are connected. And in the series, I'll share a little more about pain versus suffering. But in this moment, just to say, the difference between pain versus suffering is the story that we're telling about it, right? How we are engaging with the internal dialogue. And then as you move through it, just noticing what's working. Is there something that you're doing that's working? Maybe you're noticing that you're moving your body or swaying or making a sound, and that's helping. Great, do more of that. The goal here is to find what works for you. And for everybody, that's going to be different because we all have different coping styles, right? So, beginning first with Just settling into your seat, however you may need to feel supported. Maybe that's some intentional wiggling, moving around, however you need to just find a comfortable spot in your seat. And once you're there, just beginning to notice your next outward breath. Before we even pick up the ice, just noticing your next outward breath, feeling your belly rise and fall with each inhalation and exhalation. Perhaps noticing any places that feel tight in your body and using your breath to create a little bit more space there. Now go ahead and pick up the ice, a couple of cubes, enough to engage with the sensation. Your eyes may be open or they may be closed. And now, as you have the ice, just continuing to bring your mind and your attention to your next outward breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Just simply noticing, perhaps bringing a little bit of curiosity in about the sensation and about the breath. Breathing in determination, breathing out effort. Simply noticing your next outward breath. Go ahead and put down the ice. So just the very first opportunity in this moment to practice. What are you noticing? What happened for you, either physically, what did you notice, or what was happening in your brain? What kind of internal dialogue were you noticing?
I think I remember this feeling a little harder the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't like painful. I didn't feel like I was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And like staying with my breath was helpful. And then I'd go to like, how does it feel to hold it and kind of check in,
Mm-hmm.
like how comfortable or uncomfortable is this? And like noticing like, oh, this is when I would usually want to put this down and just kind of um like registering that and then going back to my breath and holding on to it. And I think even in the like settling in before I picked up the ice,
Yeah.
noticing like taking a bigger breath and noticing, oh, like here's where my body is like kind of holding some tension or like it's tighter and I could expand more. That I think helped in
Yeah.
preparation.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what I like in that too is thinking about that time in between contractions, right? Because contraction in active labor lasts on average about a minute, and that's actually how long you were just holding the ice for, was about a minute. And if you think about the time in between contractions, maybe 2 to 3 minutes in active labor, and that time is often it's very helpful to kind of use that as preparation for the next one. If you're
Mhm.
moving into the peak of the next contraction, but you've already been in the space of softening, releasing, bringing your attention to your breath, feeling, touching into whatever's helping you feel grounded or feeling centered, then by the time you get to that peak, you're already in that place of coping. So you're not kind of scrambling to get there all of a sudden, right? But you're already in it. So it kind of allows you to ease in to that moment. And of course, every contraction's different. Some contractions are more intense than others. Some you may find like, great, yeah, that was really helpful. And others you're like, ooh, really squirmy. That wasn't as helpful, right? So, you take each one as it comes, but in general, it's very helpful to use the time in between to just what I call do nothing extra, right? Really just being in that place of rest, of rejuvenation, and trying to reset so that you can prepare for the next one. So, what we'll do before we go is just try a couple in a row if you're open to that. Because building rhythm and repetition is another piece, right? Doing something one time, you're just getting a sense of it. But as you do it a few times, and in the context of labor contractions, you're like going to be doing it way more than a few times, going to come and go and come and go. And you build that rhythm and that repetition. And then through that, you begin to realize, like, okay, this is what's working. And every time it starts, I'm going to lean into that, right? So before we begin the next one, just notice what was working. Was there something that was working about what was happening in your body or your mind? And just starting there. Again, finding a way to settle into your seat. Maybe this time there's something that you change to help bring a different sense of comfort. Maybe trying something new. Perhaps if your eyes were open before, you try closing them or vice versa. Maybe you even bring in a little movement, just softly rocking or swaying. And as you're doing this, again, bringing your attention to your next outward breath before we even pick up the ice. Just allowing yourself to build rhythm and repetition. Now switching hands and picking up the ice with the hand that you weren't using last time. Go ahead and bring your attention to your next outward breath. Again, simply noticing the rhythm of your breath, the sensation, what's working, and back to your outward breath. Finding your way through as best as you can. Simply returning to your next outward breath if your mind begins to wander. And go ahead and put down the ice. This time doing a body scan in between, just bringing your awareness to any tightness or tension that you may be feeling in your brow, in the skull behind your ears, or in the occiput. Any tension in the jaw that you can soften or let go of. Maybe noticing if the shoulders are up to the ears and letting them drop down just a little bit. Breathing into the heart space, softening and opening there. Down to the muscles in your abdomen, your belly, softening the thighs, softening the pelvic floor muscles, all the way down to the toes. And taking a nice deep cleansing breath, maybe a sigh to let it all go. And switching hands, go ahead and pick up the ice. Back to the first hand, finding the rhythm of your breath. And go ahead and drop the ice. Again, maybe taking a big, deep cleansing breath and blowing it away, whatever remaining sensation that you may feel. And just noticing again what was working, maybe bringing your attention to the internal dialogue, what your brain was telling yourself, what the messaging was. Noticing any difference between the very first time holding ice and this time, this last time. You may or may not have noticed that I led you through the first two, but I was silent for the last one. And sometimes people don't even realize that. And sometimes other people may find that it was easier or harder because I wasn't leading them. So just taking a moment to check in with you, what did you notice? What is happening from the first one to the third one, and any takeaways from the practice?
I think the first one felt like surprising that it was like a little easier than I was expecting. And then I got to the second round and was like, oh, this is harder. Like, I don't know if it's this hand and the way it's
Yeah.
feeling in this hand, or the knowing that I'm going to be doing however many you decide we're doing. Um, that made it harder. And I realized like I tend to close my eyes and like can really go inside, but that gets me stuck in my head.
Mm.
So like I think being aware of that and trying to keep my eyes open while I was doing holding the ice, and like I decided to try to look around like and just take in like visual things in the room, and that made the third one feel the most easy.
Mm.
Like it went by and I was like, oh, I didn't have the point where would say to myself, I'm ready to put this down. I just kind of was like surprised you said it's time.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so just noticing, like doing even something small differently can make a big difference, right? We don't always need to make drastic changes to change the experience. And that's certainly true for all different kinds of experiences in labor and postpartum and in parenting, right? And in life. So even just small changes can really change our experience. There was one other thing you were speaking to that I was going to comment on, but I'm not sure. May have slipped away. Oh, I think I was just going to make a statement just about the difference between internal and external coping styles. Often people tend to gravitate towards being more internal or external in our style, and in labor. For most people, they'll experience some times where the internal practices help more and other times where the external practices help more. So when we get into the series, we're going to do a lot more kind of diving into like, different kinds of internal versus external coping practices and some examples of ways you can practice at home, etc. But certainly, this practice, breath awareness, you can bring with you today as something that you can continue if you'd like in your preparation for birth or beyond. I find that it's helpful to just practice, even a couple days a week, doing this kind of thing, whether it's with ice or in everyday life. Often, when, if I'm having trouble sleeping, if I'm feeling discomfort physically or emotionally, that can be my cue to like, okay, start breath awareness. Just bring my attention to what I'm noticing. And I am literally not going to change what's happening that's making me feel stressed, but I will change my response to it. And that's really what this is all about, right? We're not able to change the outcome of things all of the time, but we can change the way that we're responding. And this is very much a practice, not a magic trick. It's not something that it's like, okay, let's just dust it off and make it work for us in labor or in life. It's going to be much more effective if we take, practice with it, if we take the time to practice. So that's my offering for beyond, this class today, of something that you can continue to practice. Again, the series is going to dive into a lot of the birthing from within frameworks around pain coping and practices that we offer to practice, right? This is so much more than just like learning about it and talking about it. This is going to be an opportunity to actually like carve time out of your day to do it. And um, this is available to the public, but if you are in our membership, in our parent membership, there is also a discount. And for anybody here that doesn't know about the parent membership, there's all sorts of things that you can benefit from, including monthly continuing education calls on all sorts of relevant topics. And then there's a library with all of the recordings that you have access to, workshops like these. There's a resource hub with all sorts of documents and some audio files, etc., discounts, and a variety of tools. So again, this is a new offering, and so we're just trying to get the word out about it. I'd love to just take a moment to um, close with any sort of takeaway, if there's anything at all that you'd like to share, just about today for, something that you're bringing with you, Jenna, from this time together. And also to thank you for being here with me. It's so much more engaging and fun having you here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I
Yeah.
feel like it was really nice how you laid out the coping versus comfort.
Mm.
And not that like they're exclusive, but like we kind of need both.
Yeah.
And some of them will work at some times and others. And I've done a fair amount of like mindfulness
Mhm.
reading and like trying to do my own, and I still find it a challenge. So it's like helpful to do the experiential stuff and just carve out the time to do it. Um, so I appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for this.
Thanks so much for being here today. And please reach out if there's anything else that we can do to offer support or information for your journey. And I'm not sure if you'll still be pregnant or not when the series is happening, but if you're interested, I'll be leading that and maybe get to see you again.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, what time and what day is the series? I know it's
That's
in
a great
September.
question. Let's see. I'm going to double check. I do not have that memorized, and I should have looked that up before the class. That would have been really smart.
So it
Let's see.
looks
The
like
series is happening in September, starts on the 9th, and it's from 4 to 5:30 Pacific time. And it's
okay.
4-week series.
Yeah, I would like to take it. It's close. My due date is October 8th.
Okay,
So it would
cool.
be like right ahead of there
Yeah.
if I can attend all of them, we'll see. But
Yeah, great.
yeah.
Well, the recordings are made available beyond, after the fact. And even if you made it to the first couple, I'm sure there would be lots of takeaways that would be valuable for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, really lovely to meet you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.